Without a doubt, ND filters are my personal favorite filter to use, because most filters I find will enhance the scene that you can see, but ND filters open up the possibility of scenes that you can't see, because you're able to do longer exposures even in daylight, and they're also handy for video work as well. So when a company called K&F got in touch with me and asked did I want to test out one of their ND filters, I thought, why not? Let's go. So the filter they've sent me is this. Now, it's one of their variable ND filters. K&F do actually have a range of different strength filters, both variable and fixed, I believe. This particular one that they've sent me is an ND2 to ND32, which equates to between 1 and 5 stops worth of stopping power. So 5 stops is not the strongest filter that's on the market. You're not going to be able to get stupidly long exposures with a filter of this strength, but that's not to say that it's not got its uses. 5 stops was more than enough for me to be able to get some motion blur into moving water, and I've been using it a lot for video footage, because for video generally you set your shutter speed to double what your frame rate is. So I shoot a lot at 25 frames a second. I'm using a 50th of a second shutter speed, which when you're trying to shoot outdoors in daylight essentially means that without a filter you're going to have to stop your aperture down, and that's going to bring your background into focus, which you don't want. So ND filters are a fantastic way of being able to get around that. And essentially, if you think a 5-stop ND filter, you could use this on a lens with an f1.4 aperture and get the same exposure, f2, f2.8, f4, f5.6. You could essentially get the same exposure with 5 stops worth of neutral density as shooting without a filter at f8. Now, in terms of build quality, you know, it's okay. It's predominantly plastic. It's not a metal filter. One thing I did notice about this, it's not a concern so much to me, but it is something I noticed. There's a little bit of play between the top and bottom layers of the filter. It's not the end of the world. It's not like the filter's going to fall apart. Essentially, you know, we're dealing with 2 layers of a filter that are stuck together but still need to move. It's not like they're going to be welded together, but my main normal filter is a Tiffin 2-stop to 8-stop, and this thing doesn't have any play with it like that does. But optically, this thing's pretty impressive, to be fair. Compared to my Tiffin, which is my normal filter, it's not quite as sharp optically. There's a minuscule drop in sharpness, but it's not actually noticeable in real-world usage. If you're actually just using this filter, it's not like you take a picture, look at it, and think, well, that looks garbage. Only when I was pixel peeping test shots of a brick wall did I actually notice any difference. But even then, the difference is very, very minimal. Where there was more of a notice is the change in colour. So the Tiffin doesn't really shift the colours around in the picture at all, even at its maximum setting. This adds a little bit of an orange tint to the images, but it's not really the end of the world. It's your personal preference. If you don't like it, it is easily correctable. If you don't want it, you get a more expensive filter. So the Tiffin is optically a better filter, but it's also a lot more expensive. This thing set me back like 100 quid, whereas the K&F is half the price. And there's a few things about the Tiffin that I absolutely hate. One thing I hate about it is when you're using it on the camera, the filter itself will rotate a full 360 degrees. It'll just rotate round and round all day long. So obviously, because it's a variable and it's rotatable, that means you get essentially 2 sides where you get minimum neutral density effect and 2 sides where you get maximum effect. But there's only markings on one side of the filter. So you put the filter on, and then you've then got to wind the filter all the way around to work out where the hell you're at. And the moment you go beyond where minimum and maximum is, particularly with maximum, you start then introducing potentially optical flaws. For example, once you go beyond maximum, you start to lose contrast in your pictures very, very quickly. With the K&F, you don't have that problem though, because there's hard stops at minimum and maximum. So the filter will only actually rotate about 60 degrees. And as soon as you screw this on, you know you're not sitting somewhere between maximum and minimum where you're going to get some funky, weird crosshairs through your image. You know straight away, as soon as you put this on the lens, you're good to take a picture. You've just got to get the strength right. Another thing I dislike about the Tiffin is While it's a very thick lens, most of the thickness of the lens is the top section that you spin. Most of the bottom section of the filter is actually taken up with the screw thread. So once you've got this screwed onto a lens, there's not really a lot of the filter to grip onto that lets you unscrew the filter. So often I've put this onto a lens and then I'm trying to unscrew it and I'm actually just rotating the front section of filter rather than the whole filter itself. Which was another thing about the K&F that I really liked, was the fact that it's a fairly even 50-50 split, and the bottom section of the filter that goes on the lens itself is actually ridged. So you can very easily grip the filter to be able to remove it, but then it's also still very easy to turn it on the lens itself. You're not accidentally going to unscrew the filter. So in conclusion, the Tiffin is optically a better filter, but it's also a lot more expensive and it can be a pain in the arse to use at times. The K&F, however, gives you kind of probably 90% of the performance for 50% of the price. So is actually the one I would say is much better value for money. And nowadays, anytime that I'm shooting video footage outdoors or I'm taking a picture where I need a little bit of light stop but not a huge amount, this is actually the one that I'm finding myself using rather than the Tiffin. So if you want to check out this particular filter or any of the other K&F products for that matter, because they do a range of filters, they also do tripods and backpacks, they do all sorts, there is a link in the description down below. But that's it for this video. What do you guys make of ND filters? Do you like using them? Do you not like using them? Is there a particular ND filter that you're using at the minute? Leave your thoughts and comments in the box down below. Thank you so much for stopping by, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.